Welcome back to the Click Down. I'm Steve Beals, and the moment I saw my guest today presenting this topic, I was pretty much blown away and super excited and wanted to get him on. And he will tell you that this is true, that immediately after his presentation, I went right up to him and asked him to come on to the podcast as soon as possible. So I would like to welcome Jason Samuel to the Click Down. Jason, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. Love being here and love talking about this topic.
Awesome. So everyone listening is probably thinking and asking themselves, okay, why is Steve so jacked up today? And it's something we, have recently released to help customers and partners automate Citrix management via infrastructure as a code. And, I'm super excited about this. And honestly, if I had sound effects engineers behind me, this is where all the trumpets and bells would be ringing and playing with my excitement. So, with that, I'll just dive in and, start with, really our, the first question I had for you, Jason, is, what is our strategy, Citrix strategy for automation?
Yeah, great question, Steve. So Citrix already has quite a few things around automation to make the admin's life much easier. But going forward, we wanted to have more of a um, direct integration with what customers have been asking for. And what a lot of customers have are CI/CD pipelines and are really doing infrastructure as code, especially as they do their deployments into the cloud and on-prem and have that hybrid model. How do you manage infrastructure? How do you manage Citrix specifically across the board? So what we at Citrix are doing is basically offering automations for deploying environments and the ongoing management of them according to Citrix best practices to our customers. And it's really aimed at both our customers as well as partners who want repeatable deployments. So it's going to have compatibility with all clouds and all on-prem hypervisors because we know Citrix is big in both. It really doesn't matter what your resource location is, but you want to deploy it as easily as possible and repeatable without any human error. And that's kind of the leading mandate of why we're doing this automation project is that we can have true infrastructure as code across the board, and it plugs in to existing enterprise CI/CD pipelines, which is what a lot of larger enterprises are doing. We also want to be able to handle POCs and smaller
Right.
mid-sized customers that may not have CI/CD pipelines as well. So we want to address both of those. So we've got a multi-pronged approach for this strategy.
And what are we actually going to be providing to, our customers and partners and even enterprises?
Yeah, great question, Steve. So it's going to be a couple different things. So as I mentioned already, we have several tools in the Citrix utility belt, like the VDA upgrade service,
Mm-hmm.
the automated configuration tool, our ITSM adapter for ServiceNow. All of these things do a lot of automation already. But what we're offering specifically here is tackling the infrastructure as code portion. And for that, we basically are providing two different things. One thing is going to be some provisioning scripts. These are actually HashiCorp Terraform scripts.
Mm-hmm.
Terraform is one of the leading infrastructure as code um, uh, like approaches, I would say, within the globe. Actually, it's like the leading one. So we're using Terraform scripts as a wrapper, and we have PowerShell desired state configuration for the scripts that will actually deploy your VDI infrastructure. It will deploy CVAD infrastructure. So all the components that you would need. And it's really great for POCs, for smaller to mid-sized
Right.
customers that may not have a lot of scripting knowledge, that don't have a lot of infrastructure as code knowledge, that don't have a lot of Terraform knowledge. There's really no learning curve on it, and it's fully maintained by us and at Citrix, and it's also going to be available via GitHub for you to be able to pull down and to add your own community input. So that's the first thing that we're releasing is these provisioning scripts.
Awesome.
The
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I remember being an admin years and years ago, and trying to find scripts and learning how to script to automate certain things. So this is obviously a huge step of things that we're going to be providing to customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a rich set of APIs, like if you're using Citrix Cloud and you're using APIs, and essentially these scripts are kind of interfacing with those APIs if you use it in the cloud. But if you're using it with on-prem, it's just deploying all of those components on-prem. So it works across the board. It works for Citrix VDI, also previously known as Citrix Virtualized on Desktops,
Hmm.
so the on-prem, but we also work absolutely the same way with Citrix DAS, deploying those components needed there, like connectors and things like that.
Awesome. So why did we choose Terraform as like our infrastructure as a code platform?
So that actually goes into the next topic, the other thing that we're actually releasing, um, which is the actual Terraform provider. So it's a HashiCorp Terraform provider for VDI and DAS. So CVAD and DAS for customers that know the old terminology. Why we chose Terraform is because it is really one of the leading infrastructure as code tools being used around the world. It is a strategy for many enterprises. It actually when you go to HashiCorp Terraform's website, I mean, it actually tells you really well some of the reasons why the common use cases for it. And the number one use case is infrastructure as code, but it also does multi-cloud provisioning. Sometimes when you look at infrastructure as code tools from a particular cloud provider, you're almost locked into that cloud provider, and there's a
Hmm.
learning curve involved with it. And you can't use it for on-prem the same way. And there's always a gotcha, right? With Terraform, it's pretty much universal. You can manage any cloud, you can manage on-prem, you can manage Kubernetes, you can manage network infrastructure. So, for example, the Citrix NetScaler is 100% fully automated using Terraform. The NetScaler Terraform provider has been out for about 3 years now. The NetScaler is fully 100% automated with Terraform. In fact, there's multiple guides that we have already
Hmm.
that can deploy a common NetScaler deployment. So taking that practice, what we've done there, and applying it to DAS and VDI using the same Terraform tool and releasing a provider specifically for DAS and VDI, that was the goal. Um, and there's so much more around Terraform that I can go really deeply into. But really, the choice was kind of made by our customers and by our partners, and interviewing many large enterprises, mid-sized companies, many of our partners around the world that deploy to many sized customers and in different regions, and it was almost unanimous that Terraform was the leading tool. So we wanted to build and worked in that area for them.
Awesome. Yeah, and I kind of like what you said because it kind of follows along our story as well, right? The any, right? Any
Mhm.
any cloud, any on-premise, right? And it seems like they have that same sort of story, so it works well with what we deliver as well. So,
Yeah.
um, what about any costs? Are there going to be costs? Are our customers and partners going to have to pay for anything regarding
Uh,
this?
no, not at all. So actually, the Terraform provider was released into preview last month, and it is available on the Terraform registry. Um, and it is available on GitHub. You can actually see it. You can add your input. You're actually interacting directly with our engineering team, so that it's really exciting to see. There's a whole community side to this that is being developed as we release this, and as we get feedback from teams, we're over there and releasing almost every week to a couple of weeks. We've got like a release of the provider. Um, so as far as the cost for this, there is really no cost. The Terraform provider is being maintained and provided to anyone that would like to use it. The provisioning scripts are the same. Anyone that would like to use it, they're all available on GitHub. Um, with Terraform itself, it's actually free. So Terraform has a couple of licensing models. There's a community edition, which is
Hmm.
100% free to anyone that wants to download it. There's also Terraform Cloud and Enterprise, which, believe it or not, is not applicable here because though like Terraform, there's a cost associated with it if you build it as a platform into your own software, but that's not what Citrix has done. We've just provided a provider, and then you as a customer or partner just need to download the community edition and you just run Terraform. There's no cost associated with it. And actually, after talking to a lot of Fortune 20 customers, most are using community, believe it or not,
Wow,
because there's no need to do anything else. Um, it's just very simple to get started with. There's not much of a learning curve, um, and it's just very straightforward. So.
that's great. So, and you mentioned GitHub, and that everything's going to be maintained there, and that our engineering folks are actively starting to put scripts and things up to there. Is this something that the community will also be able to contribute to?
Yeah, so we are when you're in GitHub, if you just type in HashiCorp Terraform provider for Citrix DAS VDI, I mean it'll come up. There's a link to GitHub because anything you put in the HashiCorp registry has to be open source and it has to be available on GitHub. So
Hmm.
we have a GitHub repository. There's going to be like an issues tab. So if you have issues with the provider, you can put it there. You just make a post, and then one of the engineers that is working on the project will respond pretty much the same day. I'm not going to put them on the spot, but I mean, what I was seeing, they're so excited. They're like in there just like talking, and I've seen these huge conversations like happen within an hour, and things are solved, and people are happy. I'm seeing all these like posts about, wow, you made my day, and things like that,
That's
and I
great.
love seeing that. Um, but yeah, that's where we'll be able to get contributions as far as any bug fixes, anything that comes across. Um, Actual contributions to the code, that's something that we're still working through. So
Hmm.
it's stuff that we're looking into. So
Okay.
still, it's a young project. Let's put it that way. It's in preview, so we're just trying to get things
Right.
out, feel the waters. But yeah, it's going pretty well so far.
Awesome, awesome. And you mentioned a couple of things that are already available today. Like, what does that full list look like? Like examples, documentation, like that customers can use today.
Oh yeah, exactly. So when you go, I can provide these links, and we can probably put it with the podcast, like in the description.
Hmm.
But we do have a link to the Citrix Terraform registry, or pardon me, the HashiCorp Terraform registry. We have the Citrix provider there. So in that, we have the documentation that's also maintained as well, and it'll show you how to take Citrix concepts and put them into blocks of declarative programming code, essentially. So all your infrastructure's in there. Um, that's just examples. There's also a link from there to our GitHub. And in our GitHub, which I'll also give you a link to, there's a templates folder, and it gives you some TF files. TF files are basically flat files, Notepad files that are used to store your Terraform. So when you look inside those, we'll actually have the full deployment of a Citrix on-prem environment, like a CVAD environment, as
Hmm.
well as like a DAS environment. We'll have it for Azure, GCP, and AWS. So, and we're adding other hypervisors. We're working toward that. But right now, you have all three of the big hyperscalers available, and these the whether you want to deploy CVAD or you want to deploy DAS, it's up to you. But you can use these template files that we have to get a complete environment within about 4 to 5 minutes.
Wow.
As a default, you don't have to customize anything. If you want to, you can go change things because it's just flat files. You can change your naming conventions and everything. But if you don't, and you just kind of just run these files, you can have a Citrix environment in just a few minutes,
That's great. That's great.
according to Citrix best practices too. So no
Which I think
guesswork.
is a big thing there too, right? Because it's there's people always asking for best practice documents or googling best practice documents. So to have that there right away would be
Yeah,
fantastic.
exactly. Why have to read through documentation and R&D something if we're just going to provide it to you in the form of flat file code? And then if you want to make changes to it, go for it. And then now you're maintaining your own version control,
Right.
and and it's repeatable and deployable. everywhere.
That's
So
great.
it's taking from documentation and taking it and putting it into infrastructure. So you're kind of doing your documentation and infrastructure as code all at the same time, and you get the best of both worlds.
That's great. Yeah, and for those who folks and admins and engineers and architects that maybe have never touched or looked at Terraform, are there any infrastructure requirements for them, or is there anything else that we recommend that they maybe use to get started with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, chocolatey is what we would recommend if you've never. So let's give a scenario. You're a Citrix admin, and you go walk into a Best Buy. You buy a laptop or a MacBook, Windows or Mac doesn't matter, and you put it in front of you, and you're like, okay, now I need to manage my Citrix environment. So what we would say is use Chocolatey. Chocolatey is a package manager for Windows. It's an easy way to pull down any application and install it and to keep it up to date on your laptop. It's mainly aimed at Windows, but there's like Homebrew for Mac and things like that. There's a few things that you can do, but just for this example, let's say that you have a Windows laptop, you just use Chocolatey. They actually maintain Terraform there in the repository. So you don't have to go to Terraform's website and download and install and do all this stuff. You can just, with one line of code, one PowerShell actually,
Hmm.
just pop that into your laptop and it will install Chocolatey. It will pull down the Terraform. It'll install Terraform for you. And then your environment is ready to go. You simply use the template files that we offer in our GitHub to run the Terraform, and from your laptop, it'll go out to Azure, for example, and deploy a complete Citrix environment for you in minutes, according to best practices. It's that simple.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really easy.
Yeah, it's surprisingly easy. We have some guides that we're writing right now and some animated GIFs to kind of show like all of this being deployed, and it's we'll be releasing this stuff public here pretty soon. But it's surprisingly easy. It doesn't take very much at all. And the beauty of Terraform is that it's a declarative programming, so you can split your files and configurations across many TF files. So if you're a global company and you do one thing a certain way in the US, but in EMEA or APJ regions, you may have a different naming convention or small changes to permissions and things like that, or your HDX policy. Those are the type of things that you can maintain in multiple TF files and then run just those portions for just those
Hmm.
areas of the world. Um, so and there's a full life cycle here too. That's the beauty of Terraform versus any type of like regular scripting languages. Terraform's intelligent. It actually looks at your environment and it will see changes in the environment and it will prompt you to correct the environment. So not only is it a tool for deploying, but it's a tool for ongoing management against human error, especially when you have larger teams and somebody makes a change, leaves the company, and then everybody forgets that HDX policy is wide open or something like that. So it helps solve issues like that. It helps you align to Citrix best practices, and it also helps with security situations where potentially an attacker has gotten into your environment somehow, silently moving around doing lateral movement attacks, and then gets to your Citrix console and can potentially do things there. With this, Terraform is monitoring your deployment daily, and you can see any shift in configuration, and you can remediate it. So whether it's human error or if it's an attacker, you've got something that's watching your back all day long and helping you set the environment back to the way it should be.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because coming into this and looking in it from my point of view, I was always looking at this as like, oh, this is what we're going to use for like initial deployment, right? And then
Mhm.
that's it. But hearing those other use cases of the change management and helping security, I mean, this is a tool that obviously our customers are going to be able to continue to use and really leverage within their environment going forward.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
So what if I'm a customer today and I've written my own automation using PowerShell or Ansible or something else, like what's our strategy around that, or what can those customers do?
Yeah, so like I said, we wanted to really go with the leading edge infrastructure as code tool, which is Terraform. But with that said, if a customer, for example, has started using Ansible, Ansible is another very large configuration management tool. Terraform is more so orchestration. Ansible is more configuration management traditionally, but
Hmm.
they're overlapping in a lot of feature set, and they're neck to neck. Um, one like there's few changes like Terraform, for example, uses HCL as its syntax. Ansible uses YAML. So if you've done a lot of YAML and you've done a lot of Ansible, um, like basically their what is it, playbooks. If you're using those in your environment today, you can actually call upon them using Terraform. You don't necessarily have to replace your Ansible
Okay.
environment. So there is a way to use Terraform to call upon Ansible. We see Ansible actually used quite a bit for image management. For infrastructure management, it's more so Terraform. So that's the other piece of this. We really wanted to tackle the infrastructure components of this, so that's why we kind of aligned with Terraform for this. Um, if you're using Ansible for like image building and things like that, you can absolutely run your Terraform to run the infrastructure, then use Ansible to build out your use your existing Ansible playbook to build out your image, your master image, drop the VDA in there and do all that, and then wire it back up to your infrastructure using Terraform. So there's multiple ways to be able to do it. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to do everything in Terraform.
Okay. Great. Great. So you mentioned before too that this is, tech preview that we're working towards, GAing this. So, today, as a customer, what platform is this available on?
So this is available universally on. So it doesn't matter if you're using a Windows laptop or a MacBook or Linux. Terraform can be installed and run from anything. There is no server. There's nothing to install. This is fully flat files and just a machine with something you can use a keyboard on to basically say go run or make changes in the code. No, using Notepad or Notepad plus plus, whatever you want to do. Um, just change the code and just say run. When you're running it against something, you're running it against Azure, you're running it against GCP or AWS. Um, we don't have the on-prem hypervisors available yet, but as we're developing the preview, we'll start adding other hypervisors. But we wanted to really target the big three hyperscalers first
Hmm.
because cloud is just a lot easier to just deploy infrastructure to. You don't have to worry about provisioning it or getting a data center team involved and things like that and provisioning stuff. Typically, when you want to kick the tires on something like this, especially as we're in preview. It's just very easy to be able to deploy to a cloud versus on-prem. So that's why we chose that approach.
Okay. Great. And my last question is, how, if I'm listening to this, how can I get started? If, I think this sounds great, how can I get into the preview and start working with this?
Yeah, so it's fully live right now on the internet. You can just type in and I'll put I'll give you the URL, Steve, so that we
Okay.
can have it in the description of the podcast. I'll give you the two URLs. One is directly to the Terraform provider in the registry there, and the second is going to be our GitHub, and then there's going to be the templates folder that you can dive into and grab the TF files. But that's all you need. Other than that, Chocolatey is something. It's a one-liner. I can give you that one line to actually show how to install Terraform on a laptop. But then as far as like documentation, um, we are actively developing it. If anyone listening to this is interested in it, I'll also provide our tech preview sign up form. So it's basically just grabbing your name and your email so that as we develop the tech preview, as we release new documentation, you'll be notified via email. And so it just kind of keeps you up to date on the project.
That's great. So, yeah, I think that's it for the, question wise I had. So, Jason, thank you so much, for joining me today. I think, I'm excited about this. I'm sure those listening are probably, and hopefully as excited as I am about this new automation strategy.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Yeah, it's been great being here. And we at Citrix, actually, our engineering teams are like bouncing off the walls every day because this is a fun project. I mean, this is the way to do it. We actually internally use a lot of this too, so we're drinking our own champagne as we call it. Um, yeah, we're all very excited about this project, and I can't tell you, I've presented on this a few times now, and at the end, the number of hands that shoot up saying, I want to be first to try it is
Yep.
just amazing to see.
I saw that in person, so I know. Yeah. So as Jason mentioned, this is available today. We're going to put the details into the description of the podcast, so you can get started. He also mentioned some of the documentation. The Tech Zone team is working on a guide to get you covered on how to deploy this as well. That should be out soon, as well as we get going here into January. And with that, that wraps things up for today. So as always, thank you for listening, and this has been the Clickdown.